What's up guys, it's Iron here, and I am back. This is a new kind of video here. This is not a new idea by no means. There's other people that do this with all sports, but I figured I'd take my own twist on it and try it this way. So as you can see in the title, this is actually a Dak Prescott versus Carson Wentz video. Now, you might be wondering, well, why in the world I decided to do this. Well, as you guys that do follow the sports world know, this is something everyone is talking about right now, simply due to the amazing season that Carson Wentz is having. So let's go ahead and start off by looking at Carson Wentz and Dak Prescott's 2017 season stats. As you can see here, Carson Wentz is having a phenomenal season 9 games into the season for him. He's already at 23 touchdowns with 9 games. That's insane. Dak Prescott's having a great year too, but Carson Wentz is having a front-runner MVP season. And that's kind of what sparked it, because it's even more impressive than Dak Prescott's phenomenal season last year as a rookie, and that's saying a lot. So, that's why I decided to go ahead and do it today. As you can see here, Carson Wentz has 23 touchdowns already. Now, keep in mind, he's played 9 games this year, and Dak Prescott has played 8, because the Eagles' bye week is actually next week. So, that being said, Dak Prescott's holding in there with all the other quarterbacks. It's just Carson Wentz is a front runner this year, and he's absolutely killing it. So, with this comparison, we're going to take it all the way back to college, starting with Dak Prescott. So, as you can see here, Dak Prescott played his college career at Mississippi State for 4 years. He took over the starting job 2 games into his sophomore year and got to play 11 games that season. His entire college career, he played a total of 49 games. He passed for over 9,000 yards, 70 touchdowns, and only 23 interceptions. Over there you can see the averages, what that makes out to per game. He also rushed for over 2,500 yards and had 41 rushing touchdowns as well. He ended up being drafted in the 2016 NFL Draft in round 4, pick 135 to the Dallas Cowboys. That being said, here's Carson Wentz's stats over his college career. He spent all 4 years at North Dakota State, and he actually took over his starting job his junior year. So Dak Prescott actually got to play 11 more games as a starter than Carson Wentz did. Carson Wentz played 42 total games. His career stats, he passed for over 5,000 yards, 45 touchdowns, and only 14 interceptions. He was averaging pretty much 1 interception per 3 games he played. He also rushed for over 1,000 yards and had 13 rushing touchdowns. That being said, you might be comparing them and saying, well, Dak Prescott had a way better college career. That's true, but most NFL scouts believe that Carson Wentz had more of what it took to be an NFL quarterback than Dak Prescott did. Hence why in the exact same draft, the 2016 NFL Draft, Carson Wentz actually went round 1, pick 2 to the Philadelphia Eagles, falling behind only Jared Goff. So, that's their college comparisons. Here to the date is their current career stats as of going into Week 10 in 2017's NFL season. You got Dak Prescott's current career record is 18-6. Carson Wentz's career record is 15-10. You might look at that and say, well, Dak Prescott's record is a lot better. It is, but that's because the Eagles had a terrible record last year at 7-9 versus Cowboys 13-3. This year, the Cowboys are 5-3, which is not bad, but the Eagles are 8-1 and the front-running team in the NFL. As you can see here, games played, Carson Wentz has played 1 more game than Dak Prescott, so you might put that into effect with some of these stats, but for the most part, that wouldn't have made a huge difference. First example being passing yards. Carson Wentz is leading over Dak Prescott with 6,044 passing yards. And unless Dak Prescott throws for 550 yards against the Falcons, which I don't see happening, that's not going to change whether they played the same amount of games or not. Now coming up next is passing touchdowns. As you can see, at this point in their career, they've actually thrown the exact same amount of passing touchdowns, both with 39. I thought about giving this one to Dak Prescott, considering he had played 1 less game, but I decided to leave it be because we never know. Everybody has games where they haven't thrown a touchdown, and everybody has games where they throw 4. So you really can't go off of that. But as you can look down the list here, Dak Prescott, 8 interceptions to Wentz's 19. Completion percentage is 66-61. You got a quarterback rating of 102.4 to 87.3. Now I want to stop on that stat there because that does look like a dramatic difference. Now while Prescott has maintained a rating around that for both last year and this year, the only reason Wentz is that low is because last year it was not good at all, but this year he actually has a better rating than Dak Prescott. But because it being so low last year, they average out to be only an 87.3. Now, rushing yards, it's not a huge difference here, being it's only 116 yards, which is not a huge deal. That's a couple games for a quarterback, but the big difference is rushing touchdowns. Now, that being said, a lot of that falls on the system you're in. Carson Wentz only has 2 rushing touchdowns, and both of them came from last year, and he's actually been running the ball this year more than he did last year. So you can see their play calling just does not call for him to try and run the ball into the end zone. Whereas that's actually something the Cowboys do quite often with Dak Prescott, which is why he has 10 rushing touchdowns to Carson Wentz's 2. Now their average yards per carry is 5.7 to 4. Now Dak Prescott has only lost 1 fumble less than Carson Wentz, so that's very close there. But even with the leading in rushing yards, Carson Wentz is still ahead in total yards by about 500. So you can see across the board with stats, they're not crazy different. And then you go down to total touchdowns, Dak Prescott's 49 to Carson Wentz's 41. Now that's completely up to you, the fan, as to who you think is better. I'd actually love to see your guys' debates in the chat. I actually encourage it in the comments below. So be sure to go in, give your arguments as to who you think's the better quarterback. But that's not necessarily what this video is about. This is where this video is different. What if they changed places? What if Carson Wentz was drafted by the Dallas Cowboys and Dak Prescott was drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles? Now the reason you can do this comparison is because both of them are thrown straight into the line of fire being the starting quarterback of their team. Wentz was drafted to be that. Prescott fell into it due to Tony Romo's injury and then later retirement. So that's what we're doing here. Now we're going to bring it back over here to Madden. As you can see here, I've created 2 franchises. One being, without them switching places at this point in the season, Eagles 8-1, Cowboys 5-3. Now, of course, I didn't change anybody else's records, being that these are the only 2 teams we're actually currently dealing with. I didn't feel it necessary to waste that much time doing it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and simulate to the start of the playoffs and see how the season plays out according to Madden. Now, of course, this isn't going to be dead accurate, being that this is a video game, but considering this is a fantasy scenario, this is as close as we're going to get. So we're going to go ahead and advance to playoffs. I'm going to sim ahead. Okay, guys, so here we are at the start of the playoffs in the 2017 season this year, and let's see how the league played out. Okay, so here it's got the Eagles finishing at 13-3, and the Cowboys finishing at 11-5. Now, we're not going to study too deeply in the stats from this year, being that they weren't accurate at the midway point like they are now, so there's really no reason to even look at them. That being said, let's look and see how they have the playoffs lining up. So they have the Cowboys actually making the wild card, so that means the Eagles secure the division, which I think we can all agree that is the most realistic outcome here that could even happen. But assuming the Eagles and the Cowboys both win every game for the rest of the year, except the Cowboys win their matchups, they'd both finish with the exact same record, with Cowboys taking the divisional record, putting the Cowboys ahead. That is really the only scenario I see that happening, because the Eagles are absolutely on fire. So now we're going to go ahead and roll over to what if they switched places. So here we are in the scenario where they actually swap teams. Here you can see Carson Wentz as the starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, Ezekiel Elliott, Travis Frederick, Zach Martin, Dez Bryant. You can clearly see the only roster change that I have made is simply swapping the 2 of them. All I did was trade Dak Prescott and 2 picks to the Eagles for Carson Wentz. That way it would actually go through. Other than that, nothing has changed with these rosters, and we are at week 1. So we're going to go ahead and advance to the mid-season way just to kind of get a halfway start and see what we're looking like. Okay, now I actually simmed 1 week further so that we were at week 10, which is what we're currently at this year, just for comparison reasons, make it a lot easier. If we go over, right now the Eagles are still winning the division, but they are 6-3, and the Cowboys are in second, but they are only 3-5. So from the looks of it, it looks as though both quarterbacks have caused the teams to lose 2 games. The Cowboys were 5-3, and the Eagles were 8-1. The Eagles are now 6-3, and the Cowboys are now 3-5. So both quarterbacks have actually caused their team to lose 2 more games than they have in real life currently on their regular teams they play for. So we're going to go ahead and sim to the playoffs again and see how the season ended up lining up with these two swapping places. Okay guys, now we are at the wild card round of the playoffs with the scenario where the 2 quarterbacks swap teams. If we go over here to see how the season played out, the Eagles actually finished 12-4 and the Cowboys finished 5-11. In our last scenario, the Eagles finished 13-3 and the Cowboys finished 11-5. Now that being said, the Eagles have a better all-around defense than the Cowboys do, which could have had some play in how this turned out. So that being said, the only thing that's changed was the 2 quarterbacks switching teams, and the Cowboys did finish 5-11 as opposed to the 11-5. So, according to this, the Cowboys are better with Dak Prescott than they are with Carson Wentz by about 6 games, and the Eagles are better with Carson Wentz by 1 game as opposed to having Dak Prescott. Now let's take a look at the stats and see how they finished this year. Carson Wentz actually did not have a terrible season with 4,169 passing yards with 59 completion percentage. The problem here is his 19 interceptions to his 28 passing touchdowns. He's already at 23 at the week 10 point in this current season now. So let's see how Dak Prescott ended up finishing. Dak Prescott had 800 less yards than Carson Wentz, but his completion percentage was slightly higher and his touchdowns were less, but also were his interceptions. So as you can see, regardless of the team they were on, the stats stayed pretty identical to what they are in real life. Carson Wentz is more for yards and touchdowns, while Dak Prescott has less. He is more accurate and takes care of the ball more. That is truly the difference between the two in real life. Madden at least had that part right. Take these results as you will. I'd love to see your guys' debates in the comments below as to who you guys think is the better quarterback, who you think will have the better future, and who you would rather have on your team. That being said, both of these quarterbacks are the future of the NFL and are in the exact same division and will be seeing a lot of each other over the next 10 to 15 years. Thank you guys for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to leave comments on your feedback as to whether you enjoyed this type of video or not. And also be sure to let me know who you guys would like me to do in the next comparison/scenario. Thank you guys for watching, and I appreciate it. And I'm out. Bye.